Joining me now to discuss the latest developments in Iraq is Andrew Borene. He's an advisor with the Defense Council at the Truman National Security Project. Welcome. This would make strange bedfellows, the U.S. and Iran together. Do you think it's likely?
Well, I think that the United States would be willing to align politically with Iran in opposition to the ISIS terrorist group, so long as Iran was working towards stability, towards a non-sectarian government in Iraq, and a constitutional government in Iraq that respected human rights and humanitarian positions for all of its citizens.
This has been done with lightning speed, how quickly they've moved. Were you surprised at that? And what do you think has caused this to happen? Because you're seeing a lot of desertions. Doesn't seem like a will to fight in some areas. What do you make of that?
Well, I think certainly there have been some allegations that there may have been potential collusion among senior Iraqi military officials. Certainly those are not confirmed at this point. However, if there was a vacuum of leadership in some of these positions during the initial ISIS advance, you could see that a leaderless army in the face of a very violent, unforgiving foe could certainly lead to panic. And once panic sets in a military unit, it often it can be contagious.
Talk to me about war crimes, because you're saying that that's something that's taking place on the ground there as well.
Absolutely. Just looking at videos from Iraq today, coming out in much too high of numbers, and allegations, not just allegations, ISIS making statements that they murdered as many as 1,700 Shiite Air Force volunteers. Again, those are unconfirmed at present, but we can see the videos, and it is very clear that this ISIS terrorist group is really the most vicious form of terrorism that we've seen to date. The other types of war crimes we've seen are the murder of religious officials, not swearing allegiance to this group. So when the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights declares today that this group is committing war crimes, some alliance must come together to work toward bringing these people to justice.
What about the humanitarian crisis? We've already seen a flood of refugees from Syria. This is a neighboring country. Obviously, this has huge implications for the entire region and how much they can take. I mean, this is another body blow in a sense.
Absolutely. It's a humanitarian crisis, the likes of which I don't think have seen in recent years. The United Nations had estimated that there were as many as 500,000 refugees from the violence in Syria and northern Iraq year to date, and then after the invasion of Mosul by ISIS, that number has, some estimates have almost doubled that number. So again, there is a humanitarian crisis exacerbated by those war crimes and these criminal acts by terrorist groups in western Iraq.
Late today, the White House saying they're going to send 275 armed forces to help at the embassy in Baghdad. Can we read anything into that?
I think it's premature to read anything into that. The president's made clear that all options are on the table. And as he plans any U.S. response to this spike in violence in Iraq, I think it would be important that decision makers in the United States not communicate what options may or may not be on the table. There's been some discussion of drone strikes. There certainly would be intelligence and surveillance support for opposition to this ISIS group. And some rumors have circulated that there might be a possibility of special forces involvement at a future time. But drones or special forces alone, I think, may not be significant enough. So I think I have seen some other rumors of possible air power. The George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier has been deployed to the region. So.
Is that going to have much of an impact, though, do you think, airstrikes? Would that do much to soften these guys up? I mean, they seem to have this will to kind of run through the country in a sense.
Well, the last time American air power was used in ethnic conflict, in my memory, successfully, was in the Balkan campaign. And certainly it did put an end to ethnic cleansing and saw the end of Slobodan Milosevic's reign of terror. And so I think that if we look at using air power in support of humanitarian operations, there have been success cases in the past, and I wouldn't rule it out. I do think that the American people would not support a traditional, conventional infantry deployment back to Iraq.
Given what we've seen from Iraq's military, is it your sense that they need help? Can they put down this on their own?
I think you raise an interesting question. Undoubtedly, some interesting alliances will form. We may see involvement from the Kurds and Peshmerga militias. We may see involvement from Iran, as you mentioned earlier. Certainly, the United States will be, and President Obama will be considering options to respond to the ISIS actions. And I would add that the civilized international community will not stand for this type of terrorism and this type of violent totalitarianism.
Andrew, thanks so much for coming in. Certainly appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.